What kind of supervisor yells at a mom for backing up too slow in a parking lot? Stellan Vance leaned against the hood of his rental car, staring across the wide parking lot of store number 12. He watched a man in a red vest point and bark something at a customer pulling out of a spot. The woman looked shaken, hands tight on the wheel, a kid in the back seat craning toward the window. This wasn't why he came. 3 months ago, Stellan started getting odd reports from a few locations: low morale, high turnover, complaints from customers that didn't match the polished weekly reports from his district managers. He bought the retail chain 6 years ago from a retiring couple. They'd built it up from a tiny tool shop into 16 stores across 3 states. Stellan expanded it, modernized it, and built a strong leadership team. But somewhere along the way, something slipped. He decided to go undercover. No cameras, no production crew, just him. For store 12, he picked the lowest role possible: parking lot attendant. They hired a lot of part-timers, mostly high schoolers or retirees. No one knew what the CEO looked like. He rarely visited stores in person, too many, too far. And this one was 2 states away from headquarters. He grew out his beard, wore thick glasses, a baggy hoodie, and beat-up sneakers. He used the name Joe. Human Resources had no reason to flag the fake application. He used a different social security number from a test database they used internally. It was all above board. He was told to show up Monday, 9 a.m. A tall girl with a clipboard greeted him in the break room. "You're the new lot guy?" she asked. "Yeah, Joe. Cool. I'm Felicity. I do the new hire paperwork. You'll report to Darren. He's the shift supervisor." Felicity Langston couldn't have been more than 22. Sharp eyes, polite smile, and a tired kind of calm. She handed him a vest and a laminated map of the property. "Darren runs the front of house. He's loud, but he means well," she added, as if she'd said it 100 times before. Stellan nodded. "Got it." The next 4 hours were chaos. The store was packed, some kind of seasonal sale. Trucks came and went, customers circled for parking, and carts were scattered everywhere. It was hot, the pavement shimmered, and no one else was assigned to the lot. He kept moving, retrieving carts, waving in cars, helping an elderly man unload plywood into a pickup. Midday, he heard it. "Are you serious? You had 5 feet of space and you still tapped the curb." "Darren." Stellan turned. A woman in her 30s stood frozen beside her sedan, a toddler on her hip. Darren towered over her, arms folded, face twisted in frustration. I didn't hit anything," she said softly. "You scraped the damn pole. I've got cameras out here. You want me to call loss prevention?" Stellan stepped in. "Hey, she didn't hit anything. I was right by the cart stall." Darren turned. "Who are you?" "Joe. New guy. Just started today." Darren scoffed. "Right? Well, stay in your lane, Joe. I don't need a cart pusher playing referee." The woman looked at Stellan, grateful but nervous. She got in the car and drove off. Stellan didn't say anything else. Not yet. He needed to see more. By the end of the shift, he'd seen Darren shout at 2 more customers, slam a cart into a corral, and ignore a teenager who asked for help with a flat tire. But there was something else too. There was Felicity, who helped an elderly woman rebag her groceries and walked her to her car without being asked. There was a cashier named Julio who stayed 10 minutes past his break to help restock water bottles when the delivery guy didn't show. And there was another lot guy, Marcus, who came in even though it wasn't his shift because Joe's new and the lot gets crazy on Mondays. That night, Stellan sat in a cheap motel room, scribbling notes on a legal pad. He'd only been there 1 day, but he already knew something had to change. And tomorrow he'd be back in that vest. Tuesday started slow. Overcast sky, wind cutting sharp between the carts. Stellan arrived 15 minutes early and hung back by the loading dock, watching the shift change. Felicity emerged first, hoodie pulled tight, eyes scanning the lot. She walked the perimeter with a clipboard, jotting down notes. Not rushed, just methodical. Then Darren arrived. Loud again. This time not at a customer, but at a stock clerk. "Why are those mulch bags still on the pallet? I told you yesterday to move them to NCAP 3. You deaf or just slow?" The clerk, a kid with a buzz cut and a visible limp, didn't answer. He just grabbed the pallet jack and got to work. Stellan walked up to the break room to clock in. The place smelled like burnt coffee and old plastic. Posters about safety and lifting technique curled at the edges. A new face stood near the time clock short. Wiry, probably mid-50s, with a name tag that read Ricky. "You the new lot guy?" Ricky asked, not unkindly. "Yeah, Joe. You workin' with Marcus today?" "Think so." Ricky nodded. "Good guy. Quiet. You watch him, you'll learn the rhythm." Stellan found Marcus out near the south end of the lot, organizing carts into long, neat rows. He didn't speak much, but he worked fast and steady, even with one glove missing and his jacket zipped up with a broken pull tab. "You get a lunch break here?" Stellan asked, pushing a line of carts beside him. "Half hour. Usually after 4 hours unless Darren forgets." "Forget on purpose?" Marcus didn't answer, just moved on to the next row. Around noon, a white van pulled in the wrong way and parked across 3 spots. A woman stepped out, arms full of returns, and headed toward the entrance. Darren happened to be near the front doors. "You can't park like that," he shouted across the lot. "You're not special just 'cause you drive a van." The woman turned. "I've got 2 kids with disabilities and this is closest to the ramp. I'm not staying long." "Don't care. Tow truck's already on speed dial. You've got 2 minutes." She stood frozen for a second, then walked past him without another word. Stellan felt his jaw tighten. Inside, he found Felicity folding display flyers near customer service. "Does Darren always talk to people like that?" he asked, voice low. Felicity hesitated. "Some days are worse than others. Is there someone above him here? Store manager isn't in this week. Corporate's supposed to send someone, but it keeps getting delayed." He didn't ask more. The next 2 hours were cart retrieval, trash pickup, then helping a customer reload a 50-pound bag of cement that burst open. By mid-afternoon, a sudden downpour scattered everyone. Carts rolled loose, customers ran for cover. Stellan grabbed a poncho from the break room and bolted into the rain. He saw Marcus hauling carts through puddles with soaked jeans and sneakers. No one else came to help. Inside, Darren stood dry just inside the automatic doors, arms folded, watching the storm. When Marcus passed by, dripping and coughing, Darren rolled his eyes. "Don't track water in here. Mop's in the back if you make a mess." Stellan turned to him. "You could grab a poncho and help." Darren looked him up and down. "I supervise. You're the lot crew. You want a promotion, earn it." Stellan didn't answer. He walked back into the storm. By the time the rain cleared, Marcus was leaning against the cart bay, pale and wheezing. "You good?" Stellan asked. "Just need a second," Marcus replied, voice hoarse. "Didn't sleep much." "My little brother's sick. You live with him?" "Yeah. Our mom passed 2 years ago. I'm the only one working." Stellan nodded once, then helped him dry off inside. He found Ricky near the break room and quietly asked if there was a spare jacket anywhere. "Not unless you steal one off the mannequins," Ricky said. "They haven't sent new supplies in months." The next morning, Stellan arrived even earlier. He brought an extra rain jacket and quietly handed it to Marcus at the start of the shift. The younger man looked confused. "Just had an extra," Stellan said. "Figured you could use it." Marcus didn't say anything, but he put it on without protest. A small thing, but necessary. That day, Stellan worked stock in the garden section. Felicity had reassigned him, said they were short with the seasonal aisle opening. He didn't argue. The shift was calmer, until a customer asked for help lifting a large potting bench into her truck. Julio, the cashier, tried to call Darren 3 times on the walkie. No answer, so Julio left his register to help. When he got back, a line of 6 customers had formed. Darren finally showed up. You left the register unattended? He barked. Julio explained. Calmly. Don't care. You leave again, you're done here, Darren snapped. Julio's face tightened, but he nodded and turned back to the next customer. Later that afternoon, Stellan caught Felicity in the break room again. How long's Julio worked here? 2 years. One of the best we've got. And Darren? 5. He transferred from a different region last year. Got bumped up when our last supervisor quit. Stellan looked at her. You ever think about transferring out? I did, she said quietly. Twice. But some of the newer folks, they wouldn't last a week without someone watching their backs. He didn't respond. He just stood there, letting that settle. The final straw came Thursday. A teen named Khadija was manning the returns desk. She wore a hijab, spoke softly, double-checked every receipt. Stellan had seen her help a customer match paint swatches without being asked. She was efficient, patient. That afternoon, a man in a flannel jacket started yelling at her. His mower refund had been denied, wrong receipt, different serial number. Khadija calmly explained policy. Darren marched up and took over. She doesn't speak English right, he said, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. I'll handle it. Khadija froze. Her hands trembled on the register. Stellan stepped in fast. She was right. There's a mismatched receipt. I saw it. Darren glared. You don't work returns. I was standing right here. The customer muttered something and walked off. Darren turned back to Khadija. Next time, get me sooner. Don't just stare like a deer. Khadija whispered. I followed protocol. Then fix your attitude. Stellan walked straight to the manager's office. He knew the layout. Past the empty desk. Logged into the terminal using his override credentials, CEO-level access. He pulled up the live floor cameras, saved the footage. Then he made 3 calls. The first to HR. The second to legal. The third to the regional director. By the time he walked back onto the floor, Darren was already being paged to the office. What now? Darren muttered, heading inside. He didn't come back out. 20 minutes later, Felicity got called in. Then Julio. Then Khadija. When Stellan returned to the break room, Marcus sat alone, sipping from a vending machine cup. You all right? Marcus asked. Yeah, Stellan said. Just a long week. Something's different today. Maybe. You'll see. No more yelling came from the front doors that evening. Just a quiet tension. A shift. And for the first time all week, Stellan saw something in the eyes of the staff that hadn't been there before. Hope. Felicity sat 2 chairs down from Stellan in the upstairs office, her hands in her lap, stiff with uncertainty. Across from her, the regional director, a man named Greg Morley with a pressed shirt and tired eyes, scrolled through a report without saying a word. The silence stretched until he finally looked up. You've been acting shift lead for 6 weeks? She nodded once. Store manager was reassigned. Corporate told me to hold things down until they filled the position. And Darren? He wasn't supposed to supervise alone, but the other candidate declined the transfer. So he stayed on. Greg leaned back. Why didn't you escalate what was going on? I did. Twice. I sent summaries, incident reports, notes on staff turnover. I never heard back. Stellan, still in his hoodie and vest, glanced at Greg. I can confirm that. I found them buried in the system audit logs. No one flagged them. Greg's brow furrowed. Those should have gone straight to HR. They didn't, Stellan said. Somebody rerouted them. Greg closed the file, then turned to Felicity. I'm not going to ask you to keep holding this store together without support. We'll assign a temporary manager until we find a permanent one. In the meantime, you're getting a title interim assistant manager and a bump in pay. Felicity blinked. I didn't ask for it, you earned it, Stellan said. Not with talk. With action. Greg stood. We're going to bring the rest of the crew in one by one. You can stay. Felicity nodded slowly. When Ricky entered, he didn't sit right away. He looked at Greg, then at Stellan, then at the empty chair. You want me to talk about what happened yesterday? He asked. Yes, Greg said. Start wherever you want. Ricky exhaled. I've been in retail for over 20 years. I've seen bad managers, but I've never seen someone shut down a young woman in front of customers over nothing. That girl Khadija? She's sharp. Follows the rules better than half the people here. And Darren acted like she was an inconvenience. Greg didn't interrupt. I know people see me stocking shelves and assume I'm just killing time before retirement, Ricky said. But I watch. I've seen him snap at that cashier Julio for helping customers carry things. I've seen him lean on the new hires until they quit. One girl lasted 4 hours. Stellan asked quietly, "Did you ever report it?" I tried. Once. Got told to stay in my lane. After that, I stopped bothering. Greg looked toward the door. Send in Marcus. When Marcus came in, he kept his eyes low. He sat slowly, jacket zipped up, cuffs still damp from the rain earlier that morning. Greg asked a few questions about his shift schedules and workload. Marcus answered flatly, no complaints, no emotion. Stellan leaned forward. How many days a week are you working now? 6. Sometimes 7 if someone calls out. When was your last full weekend off? Marcus hesitated. Maybe March? I don't remember. Greg wrote something down. You've never filed for overtime. No one said I could. Greg looked at Stellan, who gave a single nod. That was enough. We're going to fix that, Greg said. Effective immediately, you're on a 40-hour schedule. If we don't have enough coverage, that's on management, not you. Marcus looked up for the first time. What if they don't hire more people? They will, Stellan said. I'll see to that personally. The door opened again. Julio stepped in next. He looked apprehensive but not surprised. You're not in trouble, Greg said. We need your perspective. Julio shrugged. I've worked here 2 years. I've watched 3 supervisors come and go. Darren was the first one who didn't pretend to care what any of us thought. He just gave orders, expected results, and if something went wrong, it was always our fault. What about the incident at the register? Greg asked. Julio's jaw tensed. I left the station for 2 minutes to help someone lift a bench into their truck. No one else was around. I called for help 3 times. No answer. He didn't even ask what happened, just threatened to write me up. Stellan didn't speak. He didn't have to. Honestly, Julio continued, I was already looking for another job. I've got a cousin who works at a hardware store across town. Less pay, but at least they don't treat you like a problem. Greg looked at Stellan again. Stellan said, if we made the changes we're planning, better scheduling, real support, proper staffing, would you stay? Julio hesitated. Maybe. Depends if it's real. It will be, Stellan said. You'll see it yourself. When Khadija stepped in, the mood shifted. She didn't sit right away, standing with her hands tucked into the sleeves of her cardigan. Greg gestured to the open chair. We know what happened yesterday. We're not here to make you relive it unless you want to. She sat slowly. I'm not afraid of what happened. I just don't want people to think it was normal. Stellan nodded. It wasn't, and it never should have happened. I followed the return policy. Word for word. I asked for help when the man started yelling. Darren told me to stay quiet and not escalate. Then he spoke over me. Loud, in front of everyone. Greg's voice was calm. Did anything like that happen before? Khadija nodded. Once. A customer complained about me speaking a different language on break. Darren told me to keep it American while on shift. I never reported it. I figured no one would believe me. You were wrong about that, Stellan said. But I understand why you felt that way. Greg closed the folder in front of him. Darren's employment has been terminated. Effective immediately. His conduct violated multiple policies: harassment, discrimination, failure to follow chain of command. He will not return to this or any other location. Khadija didn't react at first. Then she gave a small nod. Thank you. You're good at your job, Stellan said. If there are tools or training you don't have, say the word. She stood. I just want to do my work. That's all I ever wanted. As the staff returned to the floor, word spread quickly. There were no speeches, no dramatic announcements, just a quiet shift in the air. Customers were greeted more warmly. Returns were processed faster. Even the aisles felt calmer. At closing time, Stellan stayed behind and met Greg in the back lot. You handled it well, Greg said. You could have just fired Darren and walked away. I needed to see it myself, Stellan said. Policy documents don't show people's faces. Greg leaned against the loading dock railing. You going undercover again? Not right away. But I'll be in the stores more. Quietly. I want people to look up and see someone they recognize for the right reasons. Greg nodded. You want me to start working on replacements? Yes. But start here. This store needs to know someone's listening. Before leaving, Stellan found Felicity near the cleaning supplies aisle, restocking end caps. He stopped beside her. You still thinking about transferring? She didn't look up. Depends. On what? On whether this place changes. Or whether this was just a one-week miracle. It won't be a miracle, he said. It'll be a standard. She turned to him finally. Then I'll stay. But not to hold the line. To build something better. He reached up and adjusted the crooked shelf label next to her. That's all I could ever ask. Then he walked out, vest folded under his arm, into the dark lot where carts sat neatly in rows and no one had raised their voice in hours. The following Monday, the parking lot was quieter than usual. No one shouting. No tension clinging to the air. Just the slow hum of carts being gathered, the occasional beep from a reversing sedan, and the shuffle of feet on pavement. Stellan stood near the western edge of the lot, this time in a navy jacket and clean jeans, no vest. His time as Joe had ended. He wasn't here to push carts anymore. The regional office had sent a temporary store manager, a woman named Talia Gibson. She had arrived Saturday, quietly stepping in, choosing to observe before making changes. Her background was in field operations, known for fixing broken locations without fanfare. Stellan had requested her personally. As he walked toward the entrance, he passed Marcus, who was organizing carts with a new lot attendant, an older man with silver-streaked hair and a slow, careful gait. You settling into the new hours? Stellan asked. Marcus nodded. Feels strange leaving before dark, not gonna lie. Take your time getting used to it. You've earned that. The new hire, whose name badge read Leroy, gave a small nod. He's been showing me everything. Real steady hand. Marcus didn't respond, but the corners of his mouth twitched upward slightly as he turned back to the carts. Inside, the store looked different and not in any physical way. The pace was still brisk, the aisles still full. But the staff moved with purpose, not pressure. Felicity stood near the clearance section, clipboard in hand, talking to Julio and another employee about resetting the seasonal display. They weren't rushing. They were planning. Stellan waited until the conversation wrapped. Then he gestured for Felicity to join him near the paint aisle. Morning, she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Didn't expect to see you back so soon. I needed to check in before heading back to headquarters. A few follow-ups I wanted to handle personally. She raised an eyebrow. Everything all right? Better than all right. But I wanted to walk through a few things with you before I go. They stepped into the back hallway that led toward the employee break room. The walls were lined with old vendor posters and a few handwritten notices. As they passed the staff schedule posted on the bulletin board, Stellan pointed to the bottom row. Julio's got a morning off this week? First one in 3 months, Felicity said. I redid the whole schedule Saturday night. We've still got some gaps, but we've started cross-training to cover them. I saw a new face out in the lot. Leroy, retired bus mechanic. Lives nearby. Said he just wanted something part-time to stay active. Took one look at Marcus working solo last week and said, no way you're doing this alone. Stellan gave a slight nod. And Ricky, in the garden section. He asked to be moved there permanently. Said it's quieter and the customers are less likely to scream about fertilizer. They reached the break room. Inside, Khadija sat at one of the tables, carefully labeling new return tags. Her eyes flicked up when she saw them enter. Can we steal you for a minute? Felicity asked. Sure. They stepped into the manager's office, now cleared of clutter and with a working air conditioner humming in the corner. Talia sat at the desk reviewing onboarding packets. She looked up, gave a polite nod, and stood. I'll give you all a moment, she said, stepping out. Stellan leaned against the filing cabinet. Khadija, I wanted to tell you in person. The footage from the return counter was reviewed by legal. Your response was textbook. Professional. Calm. You followed every policy to the letter. She looked down. Thank you. I'm not saying that as a formality. I'm saying it because we're using that footage to train future staff on how to handle conflict without escalating. You set the standard. She blinked once. Seriously. Seriously. Felicity added, we also had a request from the training team to have you mentor 2 new hires next week. Only if you're interested. Khadija nodded slowly. I'd like that. I think I'm ready. Stellan looked to Felicity. Has the staff heard anything from corporate about the changes? I've been giving updates during shift huddles. We're keeping it focused, new training, better scheduling, clearer reporting lines. No one wants a speech. They just want to know someone's paying attention. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sealed envelope. This is for you, he said, handing it to her. It's not final, but I've started the paperwork to offer you the full assistant manager role, no interim, no asterisks. If you want it. She took the envelope, weighing it in her hands. I do, but only if I can keep doing things the way we've started. Collaboration, clarity, and no more pretending problems don't exist. Exactly why it's yours. Khadija stood. I should get back to the front. Julio's covering alone, and I promised him I'd be back after lunch. As she left, Stellan turned toward the window overlooking the loading dock. A white delivery truck pulled into the bay, 2 employees already moving to meet it. Feels different now, he said. Felicity folded her arms. They're still cautious, but they're starting to believe it's real. He didn't respond right away. Just watched as the truck doors swung open and new seasonal displays were unloaded. I'll be honest, he said finally. When I first bought this chain, I thought if I hired the right people and stayed out of their way, everything would run fine. But I stopped looking, stopped listening. Lot of owners do, Felicity said. Most never come back to check. I won't make that mistake again. I've already scheduled visits to the 3 lowest performing stores. Same way I did here. No warning. No titles. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You're going back undercover? Not as a cart guy, he said. But I'll be there. Stocking, unloading, whatever it takes to see the truth firsthand. She nodded once. Good. The truth doesn't live in reports. Outside, the sun had started rising higher, casting sharp lines across the pavement. A customer in a pickup waved for help with a bag of concrete. Marcus responded before anyone had to ask. Stellan watched for a few more seconds. All right, he said. I'll head out, but keep me updated. Email, text, whatever works. Felicity grinned. You sure you want me texting you every time someone forgets to refill the batteries? If it's a pattern, yes. He stepped out into the sunlight and walked across the lot, passing Julio helping a customer load soil into the back of a hatchback. The younger man caught his eye but didn't stop working. Just gave a quiet nod as he lifted the last bag. At the edge of the lot, Leroy and Marcus were talking about cart rotation. No tension. No sighs. Just steady work. He got into his rental car, turned the key, and glanced once more at the storefront. The problem had never been the business model. It wasn't the location or the pricing or the foot traffic. It was the silence. The kind that builds when no one speaks up and no one listens. But now voices were being heard. And that would make all the difference.